How about that new intro video, huh? What's going on, everybody?
All
I am
right.
Boss Man.
Looking
That
good.
is, yeah, not bad. That's Hammer. We are Biscuits and SEC. This is Biscuits and SEC Live. This is show number 96. We are pumped to be with you guys. We got a little bit of a new layout here. Okay, we got a new layout. We got a new intro video. We're working on some things in the background here as we get towards the season. Maybe doing a little bit of a refresh on some things around here with some housekeeping. So we're glad to have all of you in with us tonight. We've got a little bit to get into on SEC Media Days to put a bow on that. And then we're going to get into what everybody's looking forward to, which is the Gamecocks of South Carolina. We're going to talk our Biscuit Index rating for them. And then we're also going to get into Ole Miss and the Biscuit Index rating for them as well. So it's going to be a lot of fun. Hammer, what's going on, man? Looked like Vermont was a lot of fun. Tell us a little bit about it.
It was good. Yeah, we're back. We'll have one more little snippet from Vermont on tonight's show, a hint for what is possibly to come. But it was great. Weather was great. Didn't even get out of the 70s. So lovely week up there. Got to fish, hang out with the family, and it was a good time. Real good time. We missed you. You should have made the trip up, but you decided to brave the Texas heat for all of us, and we avoided it.
You did. It was. It felt like 108. I think about halfway through your trip while I was out there, and I was regretting my decision to not come up and hang out with you guys on the lake because it did look like a fantastic time. But all right, we don't have a lot of time to waste tonight, guys. So we're going to get right into it. We are presented by the Steer Agency. Go check those guys out, thesteeragency.com, for all your digital marketing and public affairs needs. And as always, we got it out this morning. We tag teamed it today like we were WWE old school. Biscuitssec.com/newsletter for the Morning Biscuits newsletter. That is free to sign up. It is just everything that you want to know about what's going on in the SEC. Be sure to check us out there. Free to sign up as always. And we will be getting into our in-season cadence here fairly soon. And the off-season comes to you on Wednesdays. And then during the season comes to you on Mondays and on Fridays. So, all right. I think to get right. Oh, well, before I do get into it, actually, the new layout here, as you see, at Biscuits and SEC, you guys can see that all the way down there at the bottom. Make sure to follow us. We are working to make this thing go and just go to the moon before the season starts. And the Free Biscuits movement has not died. Okay. Biscuits to Broadway 2027, free biscuits always. We're going to continue that until we get to Broadway next year for SEC Media Days. We were not allowed to go this year. They denied us our credentials. If you may have heard, that's okay. Next year, we plan to be there to cover SEC Media Days in Nashville. And speaking of the moon, Hammer, I don't know if you saw this. There was an unclassified, there's a classified documents tranche. This was unclassified just last week. So the Free Biscuits movement has been going on actually since like 1969. And they saw the future up there on the moon. So thank you to Neil Armstrong for his support of the Free Biscuits movement. Get us to Nashville, Biscuits to Broadway 2027.
Yeah, I believe that is one small step for man, one large step for Biscuits and SEC. Something along those lines. This is Neil Armstrong speaking, not myself. So I may have got his quote a little bit wrong. But yeah, everybody knows the Neil Armstrong quote. So yeah, one small step for man, one giant leap for Biscuits and SEC.
And one giant biscuit for your plate. How about that? Something for everybody here.
There you go.
Okay. Let's dig right into it. Howdy, everybody. What's going on, Rick? Howdy, how are you, my friend? Mike, relax, my man. We're going to get there. I promise you. Okay.
You'll see him in no time.
Yeah, already NC-17 rated tonight. Okay. Let's get into it real quick. SEC Media Days. We got to wrap it up a little bit. There was one more day on the back end. Last week we could not discuss it yet because it hadn't happened. Happened last Thursday. So we had Lane Kiffin, we had Steve Sarkisian. Who else was there? Those were kind of the two that took the headlines. I kind of can't remember. It was a long week of watching SEC Media Days.
It was Thursday was Levy and Silverfield as well. So it was
right.
Texas, LSU, Mississippi State, and Arkansas. Yeah, I mean, I guess to wrap it up, I didn't get too much out of, Mississippi State and Levy. Silverfield, I don't even really know what Aura is either, so I'm not even going to pretend I understand what exactly was going on there with whether he has it or not. But I guess moral of the story, people are overlooking Arkansas, probably myself included. We haven't done our predictions yet, but if y'all been watching the show this offseason since they made that hire, I haven't been too high on the Hogs, but that was kind of the main takeaway, I guess, from his time. And then Lane Kiffin just did a big filibuster, barely took any questions because he spoke forever. And then Sark, I've actually, we can get into this maybe for a second, but Sark at least had a little bit of meat on the bone of what he said, especially with that no cap or cap space comment. That's probably the most headline driven thing that I saw. What did you think of those comments?
Well, no cap. Funny you mentioned that. This is something that, yeah, exactly. Right. This is something I've said for years, actually. It was something that I talked about a couple years ago when all this NIL stuff was coming out. Go find the tape. It's somewhere out there. Maybe I'll have to find it. But I remember having this thought about this is where it's going to go. If we're going to have players being paid and we're going to have these rosters and we're going to have essentially a salary cap, right? If that's where this is going, well, then we're going to have roster cuts like this. And there's going to be tough conversations at the end of the year where this exact thing happens, which everybody knew that that's what happened. And it kind of came out too, because Parker Livingstone kind of made a couple comments that it was he was basically, they let me go. They basically told me to go to the portal.
It wasn't really my call.
And the more I've heard, right, I've listened to Ari Wasserman talk about it, and he mentioned that Livingstone, he's gotten the full story basically at this point. And Texas gave him one number and then came back once Cam Coleman went in the portal and gave him another number, which was much, much lower than the original number. And he was like, I'm going to the portal. So he went in the portal, and then Oklahoma, and I think there was one or two other teams that offered him that gave him exactly what Texas was going to give him or more. So for him, it was a no-brainer, and he felt obviously slighted, as anyone would at their employer. If their employer offers them one number and then they get basically cut in half, you're going to say, take a hike. I'm going to figure something else out. So, but this was coming. And I remember thinking this, 2 years ago of well, the days of, hey, everything's locked in and, these schools trying to be loyal, if they ever were, are over. And there will be times where kids are going to get cut, right? Even good players like this, if they think they've got a better shot to sign a free agent, in this case, get somebody out of the portal, Cam Coleman's a great example, then that's what's going to happen. They're going to let kids go. And Sark was the first one we've heard actually just come out and say that and said, yeah, that's exactly what we did. And then he started naming names. I don't know if he had to do that, but he just went for it. So I thought it was interesting.
I agree. I don't really have much to add other than I appreciate Sark's candor in being open and talking about it. I don't know that naming everybody was the right call there, but at the end of the day, as you brought up, everybody already kind of knew. It's just a rarity to see somebody actually just lay it all on the line like that. So yeah, if he was my head coach or if I was doing this personally, I probably wouldn't have named names, but people already knew that's what happened. And definitely after he said that, people were going to know who he was referring to. So I guess I do get why he just went out there and just said, here you go. Sark's kind of been that way lately, especially. He said some stuff where you're like, man, I can't believe he actually came out and said that. We all knew that, but I can't believe he actually said it. So I give Sark credit again for his candor and just being willing to throw it all out there. He's treating these guys very much like professionals, where just hey, we're not going to like hide behind this stuff, and I'll speak the truth on what's going on. So I appreciate it.
Yeah, Sark has definitely been shooting from the hip a lot more recently than in the last, I would say, 2 years, probably, maybe less than that, maybe year and a half. But in his defense, too, he also said we had to let go of some good players. Okay, he was not throwing shade at Parker Livingstone or throwing shade at DeAndre Moore. He said these were good players and we had to make tough decisions. And we said this when you did your biscuit rating for the Texas Longhorns, that they upgraded the talent around Arch, which is what he said. He basically in those comments was like, I think it's hard to argue that we probably have a better team around Arch this year than we did last year, and we had a really good roster last year. And I would agree with him. I think he's right. Yeah. I think they upgraded the talent around Arch, which I think will pay dividends this season. The other small things that I took away from the last day, I made a meme about Ryan Silverfield and his aura, which I was very proud of. So please clap and go check it out on Twitter. But in all seriousness about him, I felt this way about Will Stein on the first day. And then Ryan Silverfield, I thought Ryan Silverfield handled himself well in his first SEC Media Days. And I've listened to a lot of podcasts with him now. I listened to Cole Kubelik on the Cube Show with his one-on-one with Ryan Silverfield. And the more I hear about this guy, the more I like. And it was the same with Will Stein. The more I'm learning about him, the more I'm liking. I thought he was poised on the podium at SEC Media Days. I thought he came across well in interviews. But we just all know how tough of a job Arkansas is. So we'll see. We got to see it on the field. But from the standpoint of SEC Media Days, I thought he won, the day as best he could have. And Jeff Levy too. I'm excited to get into Mississippi State when we do our biscuit rating for them, because I think they're flying under the radar of a team that has somebody like Kamario Taylor, who that kid's pretty daggum good. He's getting a lot of buzz, and I don't know how much there is around him really, but they're not getting a lot of buzz, and they're flying under the radar. And Kamario Taylor is a really solid quarterback, or at least has the potential to be.
Yeah, he does. He does. Well, let's get into the biscuit indexes then. Do you want to lead us off here tonight and get Mike, what he's after early, or do you want to make him wait a little bit?
No, I think we saved the best for last for Mike. But I know we have a big contingency of Ole Miss fans that watch us as well. So let's get into Ole Miss here real quick. First of all, Polar Knights, no, we are not twins. Good question, though. One's older, one's younger. We'll let you guess. All right. So Ole Miss here. Let's do it, man. But before we do, Biscuit Index, just a reminder for those who are new here, methodology, we do this differently than just about anybody in the industry. We go through all sorts of stuff, holistic approach, administration, facilities, NIL backing, what is the finish of the last 5 seasons, the coaching staff, on down the list, roster construction. Then we look backward in the rearview mirror to what happened last year, both what went right and what went wrong. And then we move ahead to 2026 to check out the outlook for each of these teams. And then we give a biscuit rating out of 12. So number 1, like Civil War hardtack, I don't think we've ever given out a 1, but you definitely don't want to be there. Vandy back in the day probably could have gotten a Civil War hardtack biscuit. But up to 6 there, looking right, kind of bland. And then 7 through 12. 7, you're ascending. That's kind of like a Wendy's biscuit. Could be better, could be worse, but got a little bit of hope. And then 12 is a powerhouse, man. That is Grandma's 100-year-old recipe. Christmas morning, everybody's feeling good. That is a perennial powerhouse. The Georgia Bulldogs got a 12 this season. So, Hammer, your Ole Miss Biscuit Index this season. I am going to get you the drum roll. Here it is. Ooh,
10.
Man.
For the Ole Miss Rebels.
Those are hot out of the
Meaning,
oven.
That's right. Meaning, top tier and feeling good. It won't take much to get over the hump and win the whole conference, get into the playoff. This is Chick-fil-A. It's Saturday, and the minis are hopping. So, yeah, feeling good about Ole Miss. To be honest with you, I even feel better about them having gone through this and looking back over the last 5 years, because it's been a heck of a 5 years. So recent results you can see in the top corner of your screen here: 11 wins, 10 wins, 13 wins. In 2022, they were 8-5. In 2021, 10-3. So 4 out of the last 5 years, we're talking double-digit wins. And obviously the last one, last year, that is multiple playoff wins. So Ole Miss is rolling. I after looking at this, I really honestly almost gave them even more. I think what kind of held me back there was the fact that they have not won the SEC. And then last year was the first year that they went to the college football playoff, despite, winning double-digit games 4 out of the last 5 years. So they've been really, really, really good, but just haven't quite, hit that level yet of, oh, this is like a full-on year-in, year-out championship contender. They're right there. They might get there with Pete Golding, of course. I mean, you go to the semifinals last year. You're right in the thick of it. So I gave Ole Miss a 10. I think they're absolutely rolling on the field, off the field. Things have been good. I can see why, they were angry at Lane for leaving, and he was angry at them for not, for getting mad at him for leaving, because things were really good in Oxford when he was there. And they appear to be going really good as well with Pete Golding. So what do you think on 10? Too much, too little? How do you feel?
I think you nailed it. I think you hit a bullseye on 10. And the reason I say that is because 9 is a dark horse to win the conference. Ole Miss is not. I don't think you can call them a dark horse. And 11 is elite, and you're flipping between 1 and 2 in the conference every year. You're like Hardee's Biscuits. You're here to stay. I don't know that we can say that Ole Miss is here to stay just yet. I think we got to see it. You have everything, on that graphic here, right? With Ole Miss, recent results, 3 straight 10-win seasons. You got to the playoffs last year. But all that's Lane Kiffin, except for the little chunk of Pete Golding. So we got to see it with Pete Golding. So I think 10 Biscuits is right on the money.
Yeah, for sure. And also again on that, I think Ole Miss is here to stay, but also, as I brought up, they haven't even finished 1 or 2 in the conference in this 5-year run. They just have made 1 playoff appearance. So they're right there. And if things continue, they'll probably get another biscuit next year or certainly the year after. But I do think there's just a few things, that they could still need to attain before they attain another biscuit. But anyway, things are very good in Oxford, still are very good. So getting into a little more broad perspective, we can look, and this is such an interesting case study too. I mean, we know, of course, Lane Kiffin, Portal King. It appears that Pete Golding is continuing that. As you can see here, one of the things we factor in our recruiting results, blue chip ratio. They're, number 16 overall blue chip ratio, but they're not above 50%. They're 9th in the SEC. So frankly, they have been outperforming their talent profile over the last couple of years. Another testament to that coaching staff. And then on the recruiting trail, there's just such an interesting case study because, the Portal King stuff is real. Here's a full picture of the last 5 years. They don't recruit very well relative to their SEC counterparts. Looking at this graphic here, I mean, they're averaging the 11th, 12th best class in the conference over the last 5 years. Then their consistently, over the last 5 years, finishing in the top 4, 5 of the conference, including last year, tying, I guess, for whatever. They were tied with everybody at the top, lost out at a chance in Atlanta due to tiebreakers. and then went ahead and won multiple playoff games. So recruiting wise, they're vastly outperforming what industry rankings would say they should be able to do, and that's all due to the portal. Because as you can see over there on the right, they are cleaning up.
Yeah,
2, 2, 1, 4, 2. And I think that last one is probably the most important one when you think about moving forward, because there was no drop off with Golding, despite the fact that he was in the middle of a playoff run, despite the fact that Lane Kiffin, cue the Joker blowing up the hospital as he walks away meme, Lane Kiffin leaving Oxford. I mean, that place, it very easily could have gone sideways. And Pete Golding, grabbed a hold of the steering wheel, kept it between the lines, coached a darn good football team to almost a national title appearance, winning multiple games, and landed a number 2 portal class, much to the chagrin of Dabo Swinney. So that's extremely important that Golding was able to do that. I think it speaks well to what they could do moving forward, what he, can be as a coach. And it also, I think one of the things that's good about Golding, and you heard him a little bit at SEC Media Days talking about, his relationship with Lane, all this, he's very no nonsense. He doesn't really seem to care at all to get involved in any type of drama. But I also think because he seemingly likes Lane and was on his staff, he knows what works, right? He's not all of a sudden I'm in charge and darn it, we're going to recruit a top 5 class every year because I'm Pete Golding and that's what we do. He's like, I'm sure he would love to do that. I'm not saying, he doesn't recruit hard. I'm just saying he saw what Lane did that worked at Ole Miss, and he's like, I'll just keep going with this kind of stuff. And boom, I'll land the number 2 portal class and kind of keep that going. So really, really good sign, I think, for him in that program moving forward, that he's, capable of doing that given all the turmoil, and that he knows, hey, this is how we've been buttering our bread lately. Why would I mess this up? Especially knowing that Lane is tampering with his entire roster and they're losing guys.
Totally. And the other person to mention here, I think, and you're going to touch on this guy in just a minute here, but that's Keith Carter. I mean, what a G, right? He is the one who picked Pete Golding, and we have Pete Golding did great in the playoff last year. He's done great with the portal. It's looking good right now. Okay. But we got to see it on the field. But everything that we have right now, all the data we have right now, says that Pete Golding has done a very good job. And for Keith Carter in a pinch to just pluck him and say, no, this is the guy, and really didn't waver. It was pretty much seemed like it was always Pete Golding. And for Keith Carter to make that call and the way that I thought he handled the Kiffin thing about as well as he could have, and raised his profile in the process. And also, to his credit, they're going after the money for Principal Uman and the other, it was a Daughtery, whoever it was, that's going to LSU, which they should.
Not Daughtery, but it was
there's another one,
another transfer. But yeah. So obviously, Keith Carter's the AD there. We'll get into kind of the back end stuff, the structure, facilities. Yeah, so Keith Carter has been there since Bjork left for A&M. Has done a good job, not just with football, obviously, but getting Chris Beard, basketball team, baseball team's always good. Bianco's been there forever, but Ole Miss has a lot of good things going for it, and I think Keith Carter's the right man for the job. And I agree, the way he's handled this speaks volumes about him. And I think too, just this will kind of take us. Here I'll hop into NIL and then I'll backtrack a little bit on facilities because it kind of all ties in. But I think one thing that was on display when Kiffin left, aside from the hate, which is fine, it's college sports, people are passionate. Aside from all that, was the kind of community aspect of Ole Miss and their fans, and they banded together and they rallied behind Golding, they rallied behind Carter, and they opened up their wallets. So on the NIL front, what Ole Miss has going for it, as we know, is the Grove Collective, which surprisingly still operates independently of the university. That early on, for those of y'all who've been following this for a while would know, was pretty revolutionary in the early collective time frame of just maybe not so much revolutionary as just they were early adopters. They had their ducks in a row and it worked. And that's how the whole portal king thing kind of started, was because Ole Miss knew what they were doing and they had money and they started paying up. And that's only continued. So the Grove Collective is phenomenal for their NIL. Ole Miss also has a deal with something called the Link U, which I was not familiar with, but it seems like kind of a new age Learfield, I guess, right? So we've talked about these partnerships with other universities. The Link U, self-described, is a sports marketing and apparel company that is a leading NIL platform for universities. So I think it's a relatively new thing, but they are trying to capitalize on this sort of revenue sharing NIL environment. Ole Miss has partnered with them. So they basically have, still the outside collective in operation, and they have their in-house partnership with a marketing entity that helps facilitate NIL deals. Lastly, this is not specifically NIL. It actually is exclusive of NIL. But when I talk about the Ole Miss community and them kind of rallying, it obviously helps when your football team is good and you go to the semifinals. But I also think this whole Lane Kiffin thing really, lit a fire under the Rebels here. Last year, according to the Jackson Clarion Ledger newspaper down in Mississippi, Ole Miss raised a record $107.9 million during fiscal year 25-26. The previous record was 55.4. So they doubled everything that they had raised, their historically high fundraising efforts in this past year. So people are investing in Ole Miss, which is a great sign moving forward. Bravo to the Rebs, because we know that they're not, even Stephen Willis, our friend, would say they aren't, mostly just because of enrollment, they're not Texas or Texas A&M or, these Michigan, Ohio State, these schools that just have, Indiana even falls into this boat of just alumni out the wazoo, money, falling out of their pockets everywhere they go. That's not really Ole Miss, so they have to be a little more strategic about it, just with a smaller alumni base, and they have been incredibly strategic and incredibly effective. So bravo there on the NIL front, and they're doing well. On the facilities front, probably because of a lot of this investment, they are planning to upgrade the stadium, and they're going to do what everybody else is doing. Big mixed use entertainment district coupled with updates to the stadium. So the last time they upgraded the vault was 2016. So it's been a decade, which historically would have been like, oh, we just upgraded. But now in our modern times, if you haven't upgraded your stadium in 10 years, you feel like you're way behind. So they haven't upgraded in 10 years. And they haven't broken ground on this new development, but it's in progress. So last December, they, sent out feelers, RFPs to developers. This spring, they reportedly, selected a developer, but no renderings have been made. So the timeline is extremely fuzzy here, but seemingly they have the money and they're just waiting to pick a developer and, publish some AI renderings or whatever. But the proposal includes, additional seating at the Vaught, luxury boxes, as well as a new luxury hotel condo mixed facility right by the stadium, 35,000 square feet of retail dining space, etc. So again, big facility right there next to the Vaught, kind of, around the Grove. They're obviously not going to develop the Grove or touch the Walk of Champions, but it's in that area. So they're doing what everybody else is doing. And then in terms of their actual practice football facilities, they did do a big renovation in 2023. The Manning Center had a $45 million renovation. That was during Kiffin's tenure. He pushed hard for that. For those of y'all that remember, he got it. Again, has what everybody else has: players lounge, barbershop, saunas, cold plunge, the works. Yoga studios, of course, Pilates. I'm sure Kiffin insisted on the yoga, but they kind of got it all going on, if we're being honest, especially for a school historically, in Ole Miss that would have been lagging behind in some of this. They're not at the moment, and we'll see what happens with the VOD or how long that takes, but they're investing more than they ever have, which is a great sign for the Rebels moving forward.
Love it. All that sounds good. I have been to the VOD, I think it's twice. I know at least once. I'm forgetting if I've been twice or not, but it's an incredible experience. The Grove is amazing. The Ole Miss fans are great. It's so much fun for sure. So for them to be upgrading the VOD, to be upgrading the area around the VOD, investing in the practice facilities and everything like that, Pete Golding's going to have every opportunity to win and keep this thing in the upper half of the SEC, which is kind of where I was thinking about Ole Miss. Like that's what they want to stay at, right? Is upper half of the SEC and kind of really like within right around the top 5, right? Like, okay, 1 or 2 years we're going to be outside the top 5, but we want to be inside the top 5, and that's what we're going for.
Yeah, especially with a 12-team, possibly even more expansion, playoff, right? Where if you're in the top half of the SEC, top 5 every couple of years, then that means you're in the mix more or less every year for a spot. You might not get it every year, but you're in the mix.
Right.
And to wrap all that up, the facilities, the NIL stuff, that does all go back to Keith Carter, like you brought up. I mean, fundraising is a massive part of the athletic director's job, and he just doubled their record fundraising year. So incredible stuff going on there. Moving to the kind of coaching staff, roster construction, what went right, wrong, and what they need this year. The staff obviously had quite a bit of turnover, but at the same time, a decent amount of guys sticking around. It's one of those odd situations where internal hire gets the head coaching job. He keeps basically whoever he can keep, because it sounds like they did have a good relationship there. So the main guys to keep an eye on here, obviously, and oddly enough, he hired a couple guys from LSU's former staff. So a lot of just odd things going on between Oxford and Baton Rouge as of late. But the main guys here that you want to keep your eye on, obviously Pete Golding entering his first year as the head coach. So you brought it up earlier. We could, we'll talk about it during the season, I'm sure. We don't quite know what to expect from him. We've seen a 2-game sample size, looked great. Let's see what he's got for a full season. He, I think, made a really good hire at OC, John David Baker from East Carolina. Previously was on Lane's staff at Ole Miss as a co-OC. Did a heck of a job at East Carolina. He runs the Lane offense. I mean, that's what he came from, kind of that air raid ish style of offense, just fast pace, up tempo type of offense. So really not much of a change. I'm sure there's like some terminology, if that'll be a little bit different, but in terms of like year to year offensive system, especially for a quarterback like Chambliss, it'll essentially be the same thing. So they're kind of running that back, but I think they hired a real good one in John David Baker.
And one thing to mention there too, I mean, you mentioned the air raid. Yeah, Kiffin's known for airing it out and some deep pass plays and explosive plays, but in a way, very much so like a Josh Heupel offense, where they're known for those big explosive plays, but they also run the dang ball, and they're predicated on running the ball. And they got Kawan Lacey, right? So getting somebody who runs a very similar style to the Kiffin offense, with how Trinidad ran it last year through the air, and then how Kawan Lacey, having that guy back there, you got a Ferrari and a Lamborghini back there, and you have somebody who knows how to use them, and you're just going to bring them in to plug them in. So I'm totally with you. That sounds like a great hire.
Yeah. And then on the defensive side, that was an internal hire. So again, sort of the jury's out. Golding promoted Brian Brown, who, worked underneath Golding at Ole Miss. So I don't really know what to expect there. He's an Ole Miss alum. That's his alma mater. So culturally, I'm sure he's a good fit. He's been on staff there for several years. We'll see what he's like calling plays. Although I do believe, Ole Miss fans chime in, I believe he was calling plays in the playoff because I think Golding said he was, if my memory serves, Golding said, I'm, stepping into the head coach role and I'm passing off play calling duties. I think, could be wrong, but either way, the guy's been around. We just haven't actually seen him, coordinate the defense fully, but Golding's around. It's probably going to look the exact same.
Yeah. Most likely.
Roster construction. Yeah. Roster construction, unsurprisingly, 72% of the roster is new. That's pretty standard. Okay. So even Golding's still going to call it. So again, it's going to look the same. 72% of the roster is new between portal, freshmen. That sounds extremely high. It's not. It's a little higher than most, but I think most schools are hovering around 60, 65%. So as I mentioned, the portal train kept rolling. So Ole Miss's roster construction not only includes a lot of new faces, but a lot of new faces that they need to produce this year. So before we get into the portal guys to look out for, obviously just right off the bat, there is a lot of star power returning. Trinidad Chambliss, Kawan Lacey, Suntarine Perkins, and Will Eccles. Eccles all return. So they've got some big names that were really, really productive for them last year. Offensive line wise, talking about the big uglies like we always do, they have 3 starters back. So, returning a good portion of that O-line. And they brought in a couple guys in the transfer portal. Obviously, sort of the most well-regarded would be Carius Kern, if I'm saying that right. That's the LSU 5-star who was a freshman last year, really didn't play much, but, 5-star tackle prospect. I would expect him to start, and then they picked up an offensive tackle from Miami and a couple other guys. So they're plugging holes on the O-line in the portal, but they do have 3 starters back. Otherwise, there's a lot of guys I could list here, but I'll list a few just to get us through. Daryl Gill Jr., 4-star receiver from Syracuse. They also brought in Jonte Cook from Syracuse at wide receiver. So they brought in several wide receivers. I mentioned Carius Kern at tackle. Keaton Thomas, 4-star linebacker from Baylor. Edwin Joseph, 4-star safety from Florida State. Blake Purchase, 4-star edge from Oregon. So they got guys all over the place that they brought in from the portal that, had a 4-star name or a 4-star tag next to their name, and that they really do need to produce. As is the case and has been the case at Ole Miss for, again, 5 years running. They bring in guys from the portal. They need them to produce, and they have been. I would expect that's the case again. Obviously, Luke Farrelly coming in at linebacker as well. So they're backfilling wherever they're missing guys, and we'll see how that pans out for them.
One guy to point out that I'm thinking of before you move on is Luke Haas, tight end, Arkansas, transferred to Ole Miss last year, got injured in the preseason. Big things were expected of him. Should be back full strength, full steam ahead. So plugging him into this offense and he was supposed to be a big help last year and was unable to do much of anything at all. Didn't play a snap due to injury in the preseason. I'm excited to see what he looks like in this offense with Trinidad Chambliss. And I think he had something like over 500 yards receiving in 2 years at Arkansas. He was one of the main targets at Arkansas while he was there. So watching him in this offense is going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, no, that's a good call out for sure. So to close us out, what went right? What went wrong? What do they need in 26? Keep this pretty short and sweet. What went right in 25? Darn near everything. They were in the Final Four. College football playoff semifinal. Like, what didn't go right for Ole Miss? To put some numbers to it, obviously, I did mention Trinidad and Kawan. Statistically speaking, those guys were off the charts. Lacey, 1,567 yards, 24 touchdowns. Trinidad Chambliss didn't even start the whole year. I guess he came in, week 3, if I remember that correctly. But he threw for 3,937 yards, 22 touchdowns, only 3 interceptions, also added 527 yards, and 8 TDs on the ground. Ole Miss offensively were – where did I put that? Oh, yeah, number 10 in the country in total offense. So phenomenal offense, as you would expect, led the way. Defense was ranked 37th nationally. So if you want to nitpick and say what went wrong, I guess it was the defense. More specifically than just the defense, it was the run defense. That was kind of the Achilles heel. They allowed 149 yards a game, which was 69th in the country. So 37th overall, 69th in run defense. They were slightly weak there. I even said, because I was thinking back to that Miami game, and in my head I was like, oh, yeah, that came back to bite them. Their run defense hurt them in the Miami game. And I looked at the statistics, and it kind of did. Miami ran for 191 yards, and Mark Fletcher, for those of you who remember the game, ripped off some big chunks late in the game when they couldn't allow it. But I was looking back at the stats. That was on 51 carries. Miami and Mario Cristobal just kept bounding their head into the cinder block wall. So they held them to under 4 yards a carry. It was actually a pretty good effort by the Ole Miss defense. They just kept, literally Mario Cristobal, meathead, just kept handing the ball off, and it paid off. But I my memory was a little bit off there because I don't think their run defense really let them down that badly. It was just, if somebody's going to run the ball on you 51 times, they're going to get a few on you. But that was overall their biggest weakness in 2025 was the run defense. And a lot of that will be new this year. Like I said, they got Will Eccles coming back, but most of the D-line, they're going to be relying on portal guys. Suntarine Perkins is back. The rest of the linebacking crew expected to be portal guys. So the front seven's kind of totally rebuilt. Could be much better than last year. Could be about the same. We'll see. What they need in 26, to piggyback off what I just said, they need the portal guys to produce, right? They got a lot of new faces on the D-line at linebacker, some of the secondary, a couple new faces on the offensive line, several new faces at wide receiver. So they have a lot of star power, guys you've heard of. The role players, if you will, are pretty much all new, which has been the case there for a while. So they need their portal guys to pan out. And then to bring us all the way home, take this full circle, we just need Pete Golding to continue whatever it was he was doing during the playoffs, right? It's his first season as the guy in charge from game one to the end of the season. Can he keep the train on the tracks for 12 games and whatever comes in the postseason? I think he can, but haven't seen it, and that's what the Rebels need in 2026. Extra Biscuits kind of talked about it at the beginning, like, hey, get me to Atlanta, get me a top 2 finish in the SEC, get me another playoff appearance, even if you don't go as far, at least be back in the dance. That shows longevity, and that goes a long way in showing that Golding is, in fact, the right guy with a bigger sample size. That is your Ole Miss Rebels Biscuit Index.
I love it. I have one thing to add, and we can put a cherry on this with going through the schedule quickly. The only thing I'll add to it is what Ole Miss needs in 2026. I think that they need a hot start. And the reason I say that is because right here's your Ole Miss Rebels schedule. Louisville is not a pushover, okay? Ole Miss should be favored in that game, but Ole Miss or Louisville with Jeff Brom as the coach, and I haven't even looked at them, but I know with Jeff Brom being their coach, that is going to be a good football team. And I think they're going to be in contention for the ACC most of the year, right? So don't overlook Louisville in week 1. You got LSU in week 3, which is obviously we all know what's going on there with the Lane Kiffin stuff. That is all your eggs are in that basket to win the Magnolia Bowl there. You want to beat him worse than you've ever wanted to beat any team ever. And then you got to come off of that and you play Florida, and you got to head to the Swamp. I mean, classic letdown game if there ever was one right there. So you do not want to come out of those first 4 games having lost 2 of those, right? So
no,
really want to come out of that.
especially with at Texas, home against Georgia, at Oklahoma looming on the schedule.
Yep.
Auburn TBD, Mississippi State TBD, Vandy even TBD in terms of what they will be. But Texas, Georgia, Oklahoma, two of those being on the road is tough. I mean, look, I'm high on Ole Miss. A lot of people are high on Ole Miss. They're over under win total 7.5. So that just tells you what the schedule is like. There's a lot of really difficult games, and there's a lot of landmines that could turn out to be more difficult than maybe we think looking at this schedule at the end of July.
No doubt about it. And the Egg Bowl there is always a total wild card there at the end of the year, right? Just throw out the records, throw everything out. Going to be a mess, going to be insane, going to be a lot of fun. And that one can go either way, no matter how good or bad each team is. So, all right, there you go, Hammer. Great work. Thank you for that. Your Ole Miss Rebels, 10 biscuits on the Biscuit Index rating meter. So, okay, let's move now here to the South Carolina Gamecocks. This one is going to be fun. I had a lot of fun going through this one because super intriguing team this year, and they need a lot. But they have a couple of pieces that are pretty fascinating and give you a little bit of hope, right? So here we go. Here is my drum roll. I got to find it first. I lost it. Thank you. You helped me.
There it is.
Gamecocks.
Gotcha.
Boom. 5 biscuits for Shane Beamer and Lenora Sellers and the Cox. Yeah, it's not great. I know. A resident Gamecock fan, Mike Huseman of Off Season After Dark, told me he was thinking 6 or 7. Sorry, Mike. I am not that high. There you go.
Uh-oh.
Should be 14. Yep.
We've already lost our clean rating from Mike's earlier comment. So
yes,
what can we do?
He's doubling down. So, here's my thing. 5, what does that mean? That means that they're pretty dang burnt, but you can cut the top off and eat it like a little bit of silver lining. There's a little bit of hope. All right. Why do they have a little bit of silver lining? They kept the nucleus together. They still have Dylan Stewart. They still got Lenora Sellers. They still have Nick Harbor. Those 3 guys, that's your nucleus. You had to keep them together, and you did a good job of that. Not only that, but you got a couple pieces out of the portal, which I'll talk about here in a minute, that are exciting. Get you up and kind of out of your seat a little bit, like, all right, maybe we got something here. Blue chip ratio is not that great. All right. As everybody, just to refresh, 50% got to be over that. That's who wins national titles, except for Indiana. One exception in the entire history of the blue chip ratio. That's Indiana last season. But they're a little under that. So still can compete, though. Not to say they can't. 18 overall in the nation in the blue chip ratio and number 10 in the SEC. So yeah, a little tough, man. 10th in the SEC, that's tough. It's not going to get you too far. But again, strong nucleus. Recent results here, it's been a roller coaster for Shane Beamer. Up and down and up and down and up and down. That's kind of how it's been for his entire tenure. 2025, you're entering the season, number 13 in the country, AP preseason rank, on the verge of the playoff last year and feeling like you've got another shot to get back there, and then the wheels fall off. Fire Mike Shula, fire your offensive line coach late in the year, and it's completely back to rebuilding. So recruiting results here, as you can see there, last 5 years, their average 18.4. That's crazy. You're recruiting at a top 20 level, and you're 10th in the SEC in recruiting. So that's just the SEC for you. It's tough. Their best class, though, again, a little bit of hope. Down and up and down and up and snip, snap, snip, snap, snip, snap. Well, their best class was last year in Shane Beamer's tenure. Okay. 14th in the country, number 7 in the SEC. And look at those recruiting rankings on 247. They're not that far behind a couple of those other teams in the SEC that are right above them. So they're in competition with the ones that are right above them. And again, there's your little bit of hope. Okay. So that's kind of where I land on the Gamecocks. They could have – I debated 6, but 6 would have meant that they're right in the middle. There's some hope, but it's mostly bland. They look right, but they don't taste like much. Had they gone to a bowl game last year, I think I could have said that. Maybe get 7 wins, right? Stay on the right side of 500.
Yeah.
I could not do that. I got to see it. I'm not very down necessarily on the Gamecocks, and I'll get into why, but I don't know. So did I nail it? What do you think? Would you have given them more or given them less?
I mean, I think you could make the argument for 6 at right in the middle, mostly bland, but I tend to agree with you. I think at times we are. I mean, look, I gave Auburn 3 or something like that, and South Carolina has been better than Auburn. Shane Beamer's been there much longer than all the Auburn, coaches of the last 5 years or whatever, 6 years. But my point being, sometimes I think we can be a little lenient, and I mean, look, 4-8 is hard to overlook. That's A&M went 5-7 in 2022, and that was like the worst year of my life. 4-8 is really, really bad. So I think it's fair to, because 4-8, that's not right in the middle. And as you brought up, over the 5 years, it's been a roller coaster. So, and the most recent was a dip. So they got some work to do. I think 5 is fair. I do think the argument for 6 is also fair. If somebody like Mike wants to make it.
Yeah, he's got his garnet colored glasses on, and I understand. But I would have gone 4, honestly. Most of the time I would have gone 4, but the nucleus that Shane Beamer was able to keep together, the recruiting that he was able to do this past season, as well as what he did in the portal, and the fact that we also have history, very recent history, of Shane Beamer doing very well and having a great season. 9-3, 9-4 with a bowl game loss, right on the verge. You were literally arguing with the committee to try to get in to the playoffs. So very recent history with the quarterback who almost took you to the playoffs coming back. You got some silver lining. You got a little bit of hope. But last season was a disaster. Good returning production, okay? Your returning production sits at 68%, which is number 5 overall in the country and number 1 in the SEC. All right, so that's another silver lining for you, another thing to give you some hope going in. 76% of that offensive production is coming back on the offense. 61% of that is on the defense. Biggest point here is that they got to have a great season. I think they got to get to like 8 wins, or they're going to be looking for a new coach next season. And I don't like saying that. I think a lot in the media have said this too. You won't find a ton that say this about anybody. But I love Shane Beamer. I really like him as a coach. I like him as a person, and I want him to succeed. But I think he's got to get to 8 wins. At the end of the day, this thing is all about winning ball games. And you can't go 4-8 and then follow that up again with 3-7, 4-8. 5-7, you're even, getting a little bit shaky there as well. 3-9 is what I meant to say. So let's move here into the administration piece of this. This is also where it's a little bit shaky for Shane Beamer. Basically, nobody above him in the athletic department or at the university was there when he was hired. Ray Tanner, the AD, he stepped down. You got a new AD, Jeremiah Donati. His tenure began January 2nd, 2025. He's been at the helm for a year and a half. The president, Michael Amaritis, he's been at the helm for 4 years. So he and Beamer have worked together for a while now. But also, Beamer was hired before he was the president. Interestingly enough, they don't have a GM. They have a director of player personnel who they essentially say is the GM, and there's been articles written about this. You can go look them up and read as to why they do not. But Darren Usher, Usher, Uscher, acts as their GM basically.
Ursher.
kind of interesting. Yeah, Ursher. Peace up.
Yeah.
Ludacris is actually one of their analysts this season.
Yeah. Yeah. Whole gang.
The whole gang. Yeah, that's right. Yep. Daddy Yankee. Who's the other? Who's the big fat one that's always there with them? We the best.
Oh, I don't know. DJ Khaled.
DJ Khaled. Yeah, DJ Khaled. Yeah. They need him on the O line. Okay, so that's what's kind of interesting with the administration there at South Carolina is that it's kind of, in terms of Shane Beamer, nobody was there when he was hired. That's the main takeaway. So he's on even thinner ice, right? Maybe if you had Ray Tanner still there at AD, maybe if you still had the president there, you got some more people in your corner. So that's the thing to note. Facilities, just like you mentioned with Ole Miss, talking about what they're trying to do to the Vaught, Willie B is right now currently under construction. They're doing a $350 million renovation to Willie B and basically overhauling all sorts of stuff.
Wow.
When this sucker's done, it's going to be awesome. Yeah, they're doing everything you think of, right? Restroom upgrades, new concourses, North 100 level concourse connecting the east and west sides of the stadium, premium upgrades, a founders club, all these. One of the things that was a problem for them is when they did a study to try to figure out what they wanted to do in terms of their renovation, they realized that their premium seating in Williams-Brice was at the lower, like literally last in the SEC. So they needed to add premium seating, get more money in. This is the NIL era. We're just trying to find dollars everywhere we can. And so they're adding a lot more premium seating, Founders Club, all this sort of stuff, right? So tons coming to Willie B. They're investing heavily in the stadium and their facilities to try to keep up with the Joneses and ensure that South Carolina gets back to winning football and then sustains winning football. In terms of their NIL, all this stuff, as we've talked about, sand under our feet, everything's kind of in flux. Different schools are doing different things as everything shifts post the House ruling, and then as we're looking towards the Protect College Sports Act or whatever's going to happen in Congress. But the Garnet Trust, they used to have two different NIL collectives. There was the Garnet Trust and Carolina Rise, which merged in 2024 under the Garnet Trust name. That is still active. And then they also have something called the Gamecock NIL Hub, which is under the university. That's a Learfield one. So Learfield does all their stuff with the Gamecock NIL Hub. And then the Garnet Trust also does a bunch of their stuff for NIL. So the NIL standard, their estimate for what South Carolina is spending in the 2026 season on NIL and on their roster is $23.5 million. So that's 14th in the SEC. I typically like their valuations. I am not so sure about this one, frankly, because looking at some of the names that they kept and then also some of the names they got out of the transfer portal, which I'll talk about here in a minute once I get to their roster, I frankly think they're spending more than that. And I think that you probably would put South Carolina in the middle half of the SEC and not towards the back. If I had to guess, just kind of looking at names and stars and all that stuff on the roster, I think they're probably spending more money than that this season. So, all right, let me run through the coaching staff real quick, and then I'll move to the roster. Main things to point out here are new offensive line coach, which was basically, it was a must. It had to happen. They fired the offensive line coach, Beamer did. I want to say in early October of last year, and then he fired Shula late October of last year. Maybe it was early November. So Randy Clements, offensive line coach, he's going to have a totally revamped offensive line, but they need that to work out. Kendall Briles, new offensive coordinator, been a lot of talk about that hire. I think it's going to be a really solid hire for Lenora Sellers and for this offense. So those are the two main things to point out there with the coaching staff. And Clayton White, the defensive coordinator for South Carolina Gamecocks fans, they know him. He's been there since Shane Beamer got hired in 21. His defenses have been pretty solid. They dipped a little bit last year in certain areas, especially along the defensive line. But he's done a pretty good job for the most part, I would say.
Yeah, they were salty 2 years ago when they won 9 games, the defense. And then last year, the wheels sort of fell off, but of the 2 units, the defense was still better than the offense in 2025 for sure.
Yes.
And they had spurts of good play, good games, some terrible games, good halves, some terrible halves. Thinking of the A&M game, but
right.
The defense wasn't the problem last year. I mean, it was part of the problem, but if you had to point fingers, you're pointing at the offense wholeheartedly, as in figure this out.
Yeah, without a doubt. So, all right, let's move here to the roster. You got a lot of new because Beamer did a pretty good job in the portal, but I think that's a good thing. I think similar to kind of how LSU and some of these other teams we've talked about, Texas for one, they may have some of this could have been addition by subtraction. It looks like they actually got better in the portal, at least from a talent perspective. Now it's got to come together. That's a whole different story. But from a talent perspective, looking at it on paper in the preseason, and some of these places, I'm liking what I'm seeing. So offensive line, I kind of have my own little scoring system for this as I go through it. I got a big question mark. Is it mediocre? Is it above average? Is it a strength, or is it strength plus? Like it's the best position group in this unit, or it's the best position group on the team. So the offensive line for me, I gave it an above average rating. They added some veteran multi-year starters out of the portal. They have 8 new offensive linemen coming in, and just 1 starter is back. Okay. And you got a new offensive line coach. But as I mentioned at the outset, I think they got better from a talent perspective. You brought in 5-star left tackle Jacarius Peak from NC State, beat out a lot of schools for him. 4-star right guard Emmanuel Poku. He's a senior. He's from ECU, 26 starts under his belt. All the guys that they brought in have starting experience. And a lot of them that are expected to start are upperclassmen. So all that, I like what I'm seeing from that perspective. QB, don't even really need to say it. It's Lenore Sellers, absolute strength of the team. He's the rock of this team. He's the leader, and he's the most talented player on the roster. Wide receivers, this one is a little bit shaky to me. I've got it at a mediocre rating right now. You got Nick Harbor, so that's huge. You return 2 of your top 3 wide receivers. That's great. Harbor and then Mazeo Bennett. The other one, Ventrevious Jacobs, he left in the portal. He went to Miami. But I just want to see it. You got some kids who came in who could be some impact transfers. DJ Black from UCF, Nitro Tuggle from Purdue. Okay, great. Sounds good. Show me. Running back, also have it as a mediocre. Matt Fuller, he's coming back. He's projected to be the starter. He was the player of the spring, named the player of the spring earlier this year. So they're excited about what he can do. Transfers, a whole bunch of them. Jabri Coleman from Penn State, Christian Coleman from Texas, and Isaiah Augustave, who was Arkansas to Colorado to Virginia. So we'll see. He didn't have too many carries last year at Virginia. So it's looking like it's going to be Fuller and one of those others, Jabri Coleman and Christian Coleman, who are going to be in the rotation. So, again, we'll see. There's been ups and downs in Shane Beamer's tenure at South Carolina. You've had some awesome running backs like Rocket Sanders, and then you've had some years like last year where they had trouble running the ball at all. So offense, we'll see. But I always feel that way, Andy, man. New linemen, that many new linemen scares me, but they all seem good. That's the difference in the portal era, right? It's tough. I am totally with you that I want kids who have been in the program, who are upperclassmen, that's when the best lines come through. But it's a little different in the portal era. A lot of these teams are having to plug holes with new linemen or overhaul. From a talent perspective, again, I think they upgraded, but that's a lot of new guys and a new offensive line coach to break those guys in. So offensive line under Shane Beamer has been a massive problem almost since the jump, since he's been there. So if he really tried to overhaul it and focus on that position this offseason.
Yeah, I think, I mean, look, no offensive coordinator is good with a bad offensive line. I do think Kendall Briles is vastly more creative than Mike Shula, just given their background, where they've come from, what their experience is in. And
Right.
so I think what hopefully, will happen here for South Carolina is the offensive line, despite all the newness, will be at least a marginally better, right? Let's at least improve from last year, which frankly is not very hard to do. And then lean on a guy like Kendall Briles to get the most out of that, knowing, hey, we don't have, 5 seconds to run a deep play action, but how can you be a little bit creative here with a quick RPO or, the zone read game, just certain things that is much more in Kendall Briles' lane. And again, his experience, let's look at his last name and what he's done as an offensive coordinator versus Mike Shula, who is just older school, been in the NFL a long time. I don't know. That was a weird hire. We don't need to rehash that. I just do think Kendall Briles will be much more equipped to handle a leaky offensive line.
Yeah, I'm with you there. And I also like the fact that the big guy they went after, Jacarius Peak, he's your left tackle. So he's the one protecting Lenoris's blind side, right? That's a big deal, in my opinion. Just somebody who's that talented to be over there at that left tackle position is a big deal. All right, moving over to the defense here. Defensive line, I've got them at above average. You lost 3 starters and 3 backups. So you lost 6 along the defensive line, but you got some decent portal pickups. Again, maybe you actually upgraded in addition by subtraction in at least in talent, and you kept Dylan Stewart, right? That was like, other than Lenora Sellers, that was priority number 2. Keep that guy, Dylan Stewart. And they did. They were able to keep him. So that's huge. The one thing that I'm a little bit shaky on here, and Mike, maybe you can help me out. Maybe you're hearing more and you're more excited about some of these guys, but the rest of their defensive line, this just came to me. I would describe them as the island of misfit toys, because it's a lot of guys who came out of high school with a lot of hype and big talent, and they're going to do all these great things. Thinking of Caleb Herring, who went to Tennessee. He was a 5-star edge out of high school, gets in the portal. He's a 3-star. He didn't have the career that people thought he was going to have at Tennessee, or the impact that people thought he was going to have. Kelby Collins from Florida to Alabama, former 4-star out of high school. Gabriel Brownlow-Dindy from Texas A&M, former 5-star in that 2022 class of Jimbo Fishers that completely disintegrated. But so again, a lot of talent. A lot of these guys coming out of high school had a lot of talent. That's got to produce. They have got to develop those guys to get to a point where they can actually take a little bit of the focus off of Dylan Stewart so he can get back to being Dylan Stewart. So decent talent. I think above average. They have to be above average just because you have Dylan Stewart along the defensive line. Linebackers, actually think it's going to be a strength. They've got 2 returning starters here, and then you added a starter from Kentucky in Quashid Scott. Sorry if I'm mispronouncing your name, but Quashid Scott at your nickel position. I believe it's the nickel. They call it's the NB. It's more like a linebacker, but kind of more rover, nickelback.
Kind of that jack linebacker to some degree. Is a right. Become pretty popular. That's it. I've never heard that name. Quashid. I like that. Quashid, kind of running the rover jack position. I'm in. Bought in.
All NCAA team name, or not team player name. He's on that list for sure.
For sure.
Other 2 linebackers, you got Justin Okoronkwo and then Jair Johnson. Both of those guys had over 60 tackles last season, upperclassmen. So those 2 roaming around, strength of your defense. Shane Beamer's very high on those guys. Yep. So then your secondary, above average here. Solid, experienced, all of them upperclassmen. Bakari Swain, 2 picks last year, stud in the return game as well. And then the rest of these guys are experienced. So should be a pretty good secondary as well, which that's kind of become a calling card in Shane Beamer's defenses is they take the ball away, and typically they're pretty good. All right. Let's get to the back half of this here. What went wrong in 25? What went right in 2025? Typically, we start out with what went right, but I'm going to start out with what went wrong here because most of it was what went wrong, unfortunately, for South Carolina last year.
What did go right?
Yeah, what went right? Not a whole lot. You had one SEC win last season against Kentucky. The only two wins that you had, I think, that were Power Four last year were Kentucky and Virginia Tech. Both of those teams had their coach fired. Brent Pry was fired in like week 4. So,
yeah,
not, you got the wins you were supposed to get, I guess, but then everything else was not good.
That's current Virginia Tech defensive coordinator Brent Pry.
Yes.
To everyone out there.
Yes. Thank you for the reminder.
Which, I'm poking fun. I admire the guy for his humility and just being like, okay, yeah, I got fired, but my old coach wants to hire me back. Like, I admire the man, but that is a wild, wild move to get fired and then rehired as an assistant coach at the same spot. But yeah, Virginia Tech was bad last year, and Brent Pry was a bad head coach. Good DC, bad head coach.
Well, we have one of those in the SEC right now, Zach Arnett, roaming the sidelines again in Starkville. So,
yeah, you're right. He is back in Starkville. I forgot about that.
It's the new thing, man. It's all the rage. Bring the former head coach back, who was terrible head coach but a great DC.
Well, hey, look at the salaries that these SEC coordinators are making, and I would eat that humble pie myself.
Yeah, 100%. I'm with you too. So, give me that money. Show me the bag. All right, so continuing here on what went wrong, they were the first team in the SEC since 2004 to blow a 27-point lead. Teams were like 268-0, 248-0, and then they blew it to gig them. So, yeah, that one was rough, man. That was a lot of fun to watch. That's a funny story, actually. Hammer called me at halftime, and we're like, I mean, this is insane. And then we actually ended up staying on the phone through the third quarter, just like, we're going to actually win this game. This is crazy. And sure enough, that's what happened. But anyway, okay. And then finally, the last worst thing, you lost to your in-state rival, the Clemson Tigers. One of the worst Clemson teams in the last 10 years. Despite what they were looking like preseason, they were not a good football team, and you lose to them. So it was a rough year last year in Columbia. But I know, Mike, I'm drinking the haterade. I'm sorry, but I promise I'm going to get you to the good stuff. Andy, man, I'm going to get there in just a second for sure. But it is interesting. They actually, in the FPI, not as bad as you would expect. So what went right in 25? They had some standout performances, and some of these guys started to step up. We finally saw more flashes from Nick Harbor than we've seen in the past. Virginia Tech, he has 3 receptions out of the gate, game 1 of the season, 99 yards and a touchdown. I thought he was going to go off every single game after that. It didn't totally work out that way, probably because of Mike Shula. But against Texas A&M, he's got 3 receptions, 102 yards and a TD. Against Clemson, 6 receptions, 115, 1 TD. So we saw it. He can do it. This guy can be a number 1. He can be your guy, a receiver for an entire season. He's just got to have a coordinator to help him out and Lenoris to get back on track. Also, 29th in explosive pass plays, which is something to build on.
Mike, if you have that guy's number, let us know. I want that. Yeah. I want to have that guy on.
I was about to say, stay tuned. Yeah, anybody out there, let us know. Shoot us a DM, and we will definitely have that state trooper on the show. He may be looking for a job anyway, so we might get help there.
Might be.
But, yeah, they were 29th in explosive pass plays last year, which might surprise folks, but they were. So they connected at times, and, I mean, I watched it in the A&M game early on. So something to build on maybe for this season. Kendall Briles for sure can air it out. So that's pretty much what went right. After that, that's about it. So let's tie this up here and then get to the schedule. What the Gamecocks need in 2026. Number one, the offensive line has got to be better. If the offensive line is better, if this offensive line, if this talent that they got out of the portal is able to gel, if the new offensive line coach, Randy Clements, is able to coach these guys up, get them on the same page, to open the running lanes again, get the running game back on track with not just the running backs, but also Lenoris, and then open up the passing lanes. Because if Lenoris has time and they're running the ball well, we've seen what he can do. It opens it up, man. And I just 29th at explosive pass plays. He's pretty accurate with the football. All right, man, let's rock and roll. So it starts with the offensive line, and they got to be better. Lenora Sellers and Kendall Briles to mesh. That's another big one. I think it's going to happen. I think Kendall Briles is a really good coordinator and like perfect for somebody like Lenora Sellers. I mean, think about KJ Jefferson at Arkansas. That's who he coached. His first year with KJ Jefferson was awesome. And Lenora Sellers is a KJ Jefferson, but better, who can actually run. So that's a big one. Then trenches on – yeah.
I was just gonna say too, like Kendall Briles, you know, I can't even think of the kid's name. Hoover, you know, because Briles left Arkansas for TCU, and his offenses has still been good at TCU.
Yeah.
I mean, he's a little bit, I guess, under the radar, or certainly at least off of our radar, going from coordinating Arkansas to TCU, because we don't see him every weekend, but TCU's been good offensively. And Josh Hoover just got plucked out of the portal by the defending national champs. So, yeah, like I think this is a great hire. I think Briles absolutely knows what he's doing, and knows what he's doing with a talent and a skill set like Lenora Sellers.
Yeah, I'm with you. So trenches, got to step up, got to take some pressure off Dylan Stewart so he's not constantly getting double teamed. They need somebody else who can wreak some havoc so that Dylan Stewart can be freed up, which is what they had 2 years ago when Kennard was there on the other side. When you had to deal with both of those guys, it was like, good luck, pick your poison. They did not have as much success last year because they did not have another person who could wreak havoc on the other side of Dylan Stewart. So the other thing they got to do, I think they got to get to the Florida game 4-1 to really have a shot to get this thing back on track. So that leads me to no, this isn't the right one. This is the right schedule here. My fun schedule reveal. That is Shane Beamer with his tie off after a big win. I can't even remember which win that was. I think it was year 1 or year 2. He's recreating the Steve Spurrier picture. Famous one, I believe, when he's at the soda fountain getting a soda. So this is the South Carolina Gamecock schedule. The reason I say they got to get to the Florida game at 4-1, you got Kent State, you got Towson. There should be your two games, 2-0. Versus Mississippi State, you're going to be favored in that game. Should win that game, but don't sleep too much on Mississippi State, everybody. Kamario Taylor's scary. At Alabama, that's going to be a tough one. Certainly going to be dogs in that one. And then you got Kentucky. So Kentucky, same thing, man. Will Stein, I don't know. They're going to get somebody this year. They're going to get him, I'm telling you. So there's some landmines in there. But if you can get to Florida at 4-1, the back half of your schedule is pretty freaking brutal. And so you, in order to feel like you got momentum, to feel like you can really get back to 8 wins, 9 wins, I think you got to get to that Florida game at 4-1, and then maybe go into the swamp and beat the Gators. So talk to me through the schedule. What do you think? Their win total at 6.5 wins. That's pretty tough. But man, that back half of the schedule is brutal. One thing though to mention before you get into it here, again, I mentioned the FPI. It's 10th in the nation, so that's a really tough schedule. But it's 10th in the SEC, so there's a lot more of the SEC ahead of them. Isn't that crazy? Maybe that's ESPN man. Cooking the books, as our Big Ten friends would like to tell us. But anyway, the back half of that schedule gets brutal.
It does. Anytime you're playing 9 SEC games and then Clemson, as Andy Mann pointed out earlier, like that's just going to be a tough schedule. I feel pretty optimistic about the team. Listening to you talk about what they have, I like the Browse hire, as I've mentioned. I think their defense is going to be good based on what you just shared. Again, I haven't looked a ton into this. We're all gearing up for the preseason here, but if they're returning multiple guys at the second level, multiple guys at linebacker, and you have Dylan Sword on the D-line, obviously a lot of new faces too. Like, I think that defense is going to be good. So I think they're going to be this is just where it gets hard, because I think they're going to be a much improved team over a year ago.
Mm-hmm.
But again, how does that translate in wins and losses? Do they go 6-6 or 7-5? That's a big improvement over last year. But is that satisfactory? I don't know. So I think they have the potential to surprise some folks and maybe get up to 8 or 9 wins. But I think much more likely is that 6 to 7 range, hence why the over under 6.5. And I don't really know what that means long term. Personally, I don't think I would move on Beamer if he wins 6 or 7 games, but I could see it happening, especially with a guy like Lenore Sellers. Everybody knows what kind of talent he is, and if he starts at your program for 3 years and you go 9-3, 4-8, and 6-6, like I could see where people would be looking to move, but this is going to be the theme all year in the SEC, especially going to a 9th conference game. All these games are going to be freaking close, man. I mean, we just talked about Ole Miss, who went to the semifinals last year. They're over under win total 7.5, and they don't play Clemson. They play Louisville, so it's not a cakewalk. But I'm just, they don't. It's going to be tough. It's going to be very tough. I mean, that tells you something. Vegas thinks that South Carolina is 1 win worse than Ole Miss going into the preseason. That means Vegas thinks they're good, but a 6.5 win total doesn't sound very good. Sounds like you're kind of mediocre, but that's just the way it is, and we'll see. I mean, it might just be everybody's going to beat themselves to a pulp in the SEC this year, and the whole sport will blow up because everybody in the SEC is 8-4, and an 8-4 team gets in over a ACC team with a 10-2 record or something. I don't know. I'm just saying, looking at all these schedules, South Carolina's included, it looks tough out there. And if you look at the over-under win totals, which we will do a video on before the season begins, it's a freaking sandwich between 6.5 and 8.5 wins. Barely anybody's over 8.5, and barely anybody's below, because everybody's just kind of right there.
Yeah, that's the SEC for you. So, all right, finally here, what can they do to earn some extra biscuits next year? I think they've got to get to at least 7. I think really probably more like 8 wins. Get this thing back on track. If you want to make a bigger jump and get more towards like the 8-9 biscuit range, then I think we're talking about win 9+ games, be in the hunt for a college football title or an SEC title, and make the college football playoff. At the very least, be in the hunt for the college football playoff like you were in 2024 in that 9-3, 9-4 season. I think it can be done. That schedule's tough. I do think that South Carolina has the talent in order to make it happen. I just think a lot of things kind of have to mesh here, and got to mesh pretty quickly. That schedule, you have to have things really humming by the time you get to Florida. I think you got to win that Florida game with the back half of that schedule in order to feel like, okay, like we really can make some noise here this season, especially if you walk into the swamp and get a win. Every time anybody walk into the swamp, no matter how good or bad Florida is, that's a big deal. So I think they can do it.
Yeah. And
it's going to be fascinating.
Yeah, and that's a good measuring stick. We talk about Beamer going into whatever his fifth year there. I know Florida, traditionally speaking, is a better program than South Carolina, but if you are at all on the hot seat and you start losing to first year coaches, it looks bad. It looks very bad, even on the road. And I think Florida is going to be pretty good. That's just a tough pill to swallow as a fan when your guy who's been there has his guy, loses to a first year coach. You're just like, oh, this happened to us all the time with Jimbo. I remember complaining about it ad nauseum. How are we losing to, Lane Kiffin? How are we losing to these guys that have no, time to get their program together under Jimbo when he's had 3, 4, 5, years. So I agree. I think that Florida game is pivotal to kind of set the tone for the rest of the year.
Without a doubt. So that has been your South Carolina Gamecocks Biscuit Index rating 5. So they have a lot of way to go, and they have a lot of potential to go up this season. It could definitely happen, but they got to get back on track. Lenora Sellers and Kendall Briles got to get on the same page. All right, Hammer, let's do it, man. Let's get into our final 2 segments. We actually kept this a lot tighter tonight than I expected. Good work by us. Pat us on the back. You put these together this week, so we do these. For those who are new to Biscuits and SEC Live, we do these 2 segments to end the show every single week, the Biscuit of the Week, and then we do our Leech Coach of the Week, which we'll get into in a minute here. But our Biscuit of the Week always feature a homemade biscuit or maybe a biscuit that we ate out and got a good biscuit at. We feature your biscuits as well. So if you would like to be featured on the show, send us a DM, tag us on social media. You can see it down there at Biscuits and SEC, and let us know. You got a favorite local diner you like to go to? You like to make you got a certain homemade biscuit recipe you like to make? Send us a picture, show it to us. We would love to feature it here on the show. This week, we have another one from Hammer. So Hammer, take it away. Let us know what you got.
Yeah, so last week, as you'll recall, I was in Vermont on vacation with the fam. I had some homemade, I didn't actually have homemade biscuits. We bought biscuits and I made breakfast at home and utilized them. So this is another Vermont entry. We did go, where we were staying was about an hour outside of Burlington. So we did go into Burlington one day, take like a bike ride along Lake Champlain. And of course, I found a local biscuit spot. So we stopped at this place called August 1st in Burlington, Vermont. This is a maple biscuit sandwich. Everything up there is maple flavored. So I just got an egg sandwich over here on the right. It's like maple syrup crusted biscuits. And then the picture on the left is a big maple biscuit that we brought home because I bought half a dozen for the road.
As one does.
And right. And my review of the place. So this is an SEC show. I doubt many of you have been to Burlington, Vermont. It's a cool place. Some cool things to do there. Lake Champlain is gorgeous. The town has some good and some bad, but this place was really good. But if you know anything about Burlington, it's kind of hippy dippy, so to speak. I couldn't get any meat on my sandwich, so it's a good biscuit sandwich, but I'm I like sausage and bacon or something on there. So this is just an egg and kind of veggie sandwich on the maple biscuit. So it was really good, but could have been better if I could have got some protein on there. And again, good enough that I bought 6 of the biscuits separately. But if I had to, go to management and give them any word of advice, it would be put some meat on your menu here so we can get a biscuit sandwich with meat. But overall, good. If you are there, I would recommend stopping there and getting a coffee and a biscuit.
I was wondering why you would just get an egg biscuit. I was like, what are you talking about?
The best I could do.
Got it. Yeah, they did not get the memo that tonight's show was about the Cocks, so we needed some meat on that biscuit. Oh,
That's
man.
right.
It's
That's
late.
right.
We're off the rails. So yeah, those actually do look fantastic, though. The maple. I'm in for the maple glaze. I'm out for the impossible meat biscuit or whatever, or no meat biscuit. Definitely out on that, but I'm in for trying a recipe with some maple glaze on the top. It kind of looks burnt when you kind of look at it at the start, but once you describe it with the maple, I'm in. Maple with a little bit of salt maybe on the top of it. Yeah. Give it to me.
The biscuits are good. Yeah, it's truly it's like a maple crust. So yeah, it looks burnt. You bite into it, it's not burnt. It just has kind of an upper crust to it that's maple syrup infused. So as Andy said, very, very Vermont. Everything up there is maple.
Yeah, no doubt. Love it. Well, let's move here to our Leach Coach of the Week. We do this one also every single week. Used to be the Muschamp Coach of the Week, but he is roaming the sidelines again, so we had to rename this major award. And who better than Mike Leach? We absolutely adore Mike Leach on this podcast. Rest in peace to Coach. But he had a ton of passion for the game and was the consummate players coach. Players hated him sometimes, but also loved him at times. The Pirate, who could hate this guy at the end of the day, gave incredible marriage advice. If you don't know what I'm talking about, absolutely search Mike Leach marriage advice. Gave some to Alyssa Lang and gave some years ago to another reporter as well, which is some of the funniest clips you'll ever watch. So this week's Mike Leach Coach of the Week. Hammer, you put this one together as well. Take it away.
Yeah, so I think we're technically giving this one to Lincoln Riley, but really it should go to Mike Leach. It's a story about Coach Leach. Those two, obviously, they were close. Riley played for him at Texas Tech. I think got his start there coaching as well. So posthumously, we will give the award to Riley for sharing this story with us. I had never heard it before, so it was a new story to me. Hopefully it's entertaining to y'all, but just another good story about Mike Leach and kind of the lovely, wonderful maniac that he was.
What was your experience like a walk-on there?
It was awesome, honestly. He was great. It was fun being in the quarterback room with him. I've told one of my favorite Leach stories is my very first meeting, spring ball. So, man, I walk in, I'm like, we're getting ready to practice in like an hour and a half, right? I got my notepad. I'm like, man, I made it. I'm here at college football, like first meeting. You know what that feels like. It's just a big moment. So I walk in the meeting room. We sit down. He has a can of Copenhagen. And so he, pops the can, takes a dip. And I've told people I'm from Muleshoe, Texas. Like I've seen a lot of dip. I've seen a lot of people can dip. I've seen a lot of people take big dips. This dip was so big that there was Copenhagen all in his face, and he had trouble like getting out like big words. There was so much dip in his mouth. So he starts talking about, do you guys know how dip's made? We're like, no. He goes on about a 10-minute tangent about how it's made. Well, do you know that it has like little fiberglass in there and it like cuts your lip? Now it's gets in your bloodstream, and you drink green tea and lemon when your lip gets like really raw. So he goes an hour and a half on dip. So somebody comes and knocks on the door like, Coach, we're starting practice in 10 minutes. He's like, all right, y'all better get out there. And I'm like, we have not learned a damn thing. Like not one thing. And I'm looking at the other quarterbacks that were in the room who had been there. I'm like, what the hell do I do? Like, just come on out here. We'll show you.
It sounds like you did learn a couple things about dip. You just taught us about that.
I was an expert on dip when I walked out there. I didn't know anything about playing quarterback.
Shout out to the Pirate. Always wanted to go off on a tangent.
Yeah, we got 10 minutes to practice, Coach. He's been talking about dip for an hour and a half.
Y'all know how this is made?
Yeah,
you guys know how this is made.
Yeah, just going on and on. Yeah, he was one of a kind, one of one for sure. So really, the Mike Leach Coach of the Week presented by Lincoln Riley to Mike Leach. So
right.
Hard to beat that one. That one is pretty darn good. So, all right, everybody, that has been Biscuits and SEC Live, show 96. We got over 100 of you watching us right now. Thank you so much to each and every one of you for giving us a watch in the latter stages now of the preseason. We are getting closer and closer to kickoff, which we are all excited about. We are looking to get to Nashville. You may have heard next offseason to get to SEC Media Days because they're locking us out. Let us in. Free Biscuits movement, as you can see down there. So in order to help us get there, you can follow us on social media at Biscuits and SEC. You can also sign up for the Morning Biscuits newsletter, biscuitsandsec.com/newsletter. Free to sign up. Everything you need to know about the SEC. Hammer and I tag teamed it today. Got it out. Comes to you on Wednesdays during the offseason and on Mondays and Fridays during the season. We will soon be switching over to our in-season cadence. So be sure to subscribe there to the Morning Biscuits newsletter. We are presented by the Steer Agency. Thank you to them for sponsoring the show. Be sure to go check out thesteeragency.com for all your digital marketing and public affairs needs. Also, we are part of the After Dark Network. That was founded by Stephen Willis, our friend, who does a great job with Locked On Ole Miss. You can check us out every Wednesday night right back here at Biscuits and SEC. And our friend Mike Huseman, you saw him in the comments tonight. He does a fantastic job. You can check him out typically Tuesdays in the morning, but he gets them out as soon as he can after he records at Offseason AD. Be sure to go give him a follow. Does an awesome job. Does not just do SEC. He goes all around the country. I think he had an episode on West Virginia here very recently that was very good. Thank you, Rick. My man, Free Biscuits, Captain Biscuit right there. Andy, man, thank you. Free Biscuits out of SEC Media Days jail. The next hashtag, we're going to change it over soon. It's going to be Biscuits to Broadway. Biscuits to Broadway for next year. Mike, Offseason After Dark, busy week here. Florida Gators episode tomorrow. Memphis on Sunday. ACC champ Duke on Tuesday. UNLV and Dan Mullen Thursday. Dan Mullen coming on the show. Is that what I'm seeing? I hope that's true, man. That's
huge.
That would be awesome, man. Dan Mullen, I love Dan Mullen. He cracks me up every time I get to listen to him. Florida Gators fans may not feel the same way, but I do. I like Dan Mullen. So very cool. Y'all go check him out. Be sure to follow at Offseason After Dark. You go to subscribe to his YouTube channel so you don't miss any of those shows. We will be on SEC After Dark tomorrow night. We are there every Thursday night, 9 o'clock Eastern, 8 o'clock Central. That is during the season where we make our picks. So be sure to go follow at SEC After Dark and subscribe to the After Dark Network channel on YouTube so that you can be ready for the season with us. Bama After Dark 2 at Bama After Dark 2. That is Jake Thomas, our friend. He does a great job covering the Tide. He's about to get that thing kickstarted again. So be sure to give him a follow for when that thing gets back online. And that is going to do it, man, for Biscuits and SEC Live, show number 96. Thank you to all of you guys for tuning in. If you have missed any of the previous Biscuit Index ratings that you would like to check out, we are putting them all on our YouTube and just the specific clip for your team. So be sure to go check out all the ones that we have done so far on our YouTube channel. Just search at Biscuits and SEC and you'll find us. For Hammer, I am Boss Man. Thank you guys. We will see you guys right back here next week and tomorrow on SEC After Dark.